For the final performance, I'd like to welcome Ben McCarthy and Evangeline Brooks. Ben McCarthy is an electronic musician and sound artist from Toronto, Canada, working with fragments of field recording and broken melody into music that slips in and out of generic idiom. McCarthy's output is rangy and prolific. He's recorded pop music as Pale Eyes, reaching the electronic top 10 on Canada's college music charts for his 2013 release, Sweatshop. His 2018 solo album, Little Music, spans blown-out DJ ensembles, found sound ambient music, and texturally dense MPC-derived rhythms, moving from abstract figures and less idiosyncratic timbres to lurching beats and spiraling loops. McCarthy won the Dora Award for Outstanding Sound Design and Composition in Independent Theatre in 2019. His work with video game collective Spekworks has been shown at the Venice Biennale, Amaze Berlin, and Mayworks Night Shift. While fist-poundingly anthemic in parts and soul-searchingly contemplative in others, the underlying goal of McCarthy's music is to, as the Kafka adage proclaims, break the frozen sea inside. His music will be accompanied by the visuals of Evangeline Brooks, a hybrid media artist specializing in generative art and art direction. She holds a BFA from Ryerson University's School of Image Art Films program with an integrated digital specialization and a certificate in Design for Arts and Entertainment from the Chang School of Continuing Education. Her work is heavily informed by growing up mixed race in a post-internet age, intersecting identities that put her in liminal spaces, in between the cultures and in between changing communication technologies. Her work has been shown with TIFF/Instagram, Open Doors Toronto, and the Toronto Images Festival. I now present Ben McCarthy and Evangeline Brooks.
that the quietest grief, likewise, asks for the smallest sound attended. That the quietest grief, likewise, asks for the smallest sound attended. Still as a cut flower over the music. quietest grief, likewise, asks for the small sound attendant. But the quietest grief, likewise, asks for the small sound attendant. But the quietest grief, likewise, asks for the small sound attendant. The new cannot be melodic, for melodic requires repetition. The new cannot be melodic, for melodic requires repetition. The new cannot be melodic, for melodic requires repetition.
Thank you, Ben and Evangeline, for that set. Next, we will be hearing from Ben, as well as Sonja in conversation. Sonja, also known as Sofie Mikhaylova, is a DJ, electronic synth artist, music writer, and editor, workshop organizer and facilitator, and creator of independent record label Biblioteca Records. Sonja graduated from Ryerson University in Toronto with a Bachelor of Journalism in 2015. She is a member of the Toronto Music Industry Advisory Committee and the Juno Awards Electronic Album of the Year Committee, and a Polaris Prize juror. As a DJ, she enjoys playing assorted deep, future, and tech house and techno. She has played at numerous events and venues across Ontario and has a monthly residency on Miami-based station Empty Plate Radio. As a musician, she relies on analog hardware and equipment for improvised, alien, and fleeting modular synthesizer sets that play with deconstructed club techno. Her main focus and project is Biblioteca Records, an independent record label focused on experimental and instrumental electronic music. In just a moment, we'll welcome Ben, McCarthy, and Sonja.
Hey.
Hello. How's it going?
Hi. Thanks for having us. So now we're live. That's great. Ben, that was such a nice performance. I'm always a fan of your work, so thanks for doing that.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm getting a crazy echo.
You have to mute yours. I ended up just closing the Twitch on my end.
True. I was warned of that. That's my fault, not MJ's. I'm good at technology. I'm a new media artist. I work in technology for a living.
That's 20 minutes.
Yeah, so apparently the whole set, there was like this aleatoric element where there was like glitching the whole time. But it seemed to have like a good effect on Evie's visuals, which were really awesome.
Sometimes it's like what Bob Ross says, happy accidents.
Exactly. Nobody I hardly could. So how have you enjoyed performing in quarantine?
I haven't been so I DJ. I don't know if there was a short little intro before. I think there was. So I DJ and I have done some live stream DJ sets. And to be honest, I did not enjoy them because it just feels really weird. And I think, I mean, you and I had talked about this, and I talked about this with other people as well. I'm normally a pretty shy person. And the reason I like DJing is because it's kind of removed, like nobody's really looking at you. Yeah. So you can still like control the music, but nobody is paying attention to you unless I guess you're like a big celebrity. But for the most part, it's very much like background. And so for me, knowing that there was nothing else for the audience to like look at except me was weird. And I'm a pretty private person as well, as you can tell by my neutral background that I purposely chose.
I don't know.
So it also seems weird because it's like, you go to the club and you keep this lifestyle so separate from your house for the most part, and now you have no choice but to meld it all together. So for me, that was definitely a bizarre situation. It was strange. I think it can be fun if it's just the audio, but then that brings it right back to it being internet radio, in which case, like, what really differs a live stream in COVID to in a radio beforehand?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, how has it impacted DJing?
I think I want to say positively because now so many DJs are being really creative with their music sense. Like, there's no need to make club music or share like these club bangers all the time anymore. So I think it's been really interesting to see a lot of local DJs and like major DJs get really weird with their tastes and their live streams and like show the kind of stuff that they normally listen to, as opposed to just like only playing peak hour stuff for people to like go ham to. Because yeah, in the beginning people miss that, but this is just not the mood that the collective mind is in right now. So it just doesn't even make sense to make or share that kind of music majorly. People really like ambient stuff. I think people are really resonating with more chill tunes, things for like straight up headphones listening. And I think that's been a really fun change to see.
Yeah, so like the change of context is meaning like different creative output, which makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think I was really liking Mark's kind of like art historical account of Toronto's hip hop ecology, specifically Scarborough's hip hop ecology, because it like reflected that creativity. He acknowledged like, yeah, okay, people are adapting and this is really cool. But he kind of alluded to some of my own suspicions or some of my own queasiness around the turn toward the wholesale digitalization that we've kind of been forced into as a result of this. So it's like the blessing of the creativity, the stuff that you're talking about, and then me from kind of like my labor and arts ecology position, I just see it as an opportunity to introduce more corporate interest and more motivated algorithms between artists and their communities. Like my grandfather worked in a quarry, and then on weekends he'd go to the bar and play mouth organ in a band. And how you get paid is they pass the hat, or you get a little bit of the bar.
Yeah.
And now, you know, you get an Instagram account and a Spotify, and those are your tools. And it's a lot different than passing a hat, you know.
Talk some more about how that has impacted the work of musicians and recording artists, like this severe digitalization, and at some points like the only option being that digitalization.
Well, I feel like, for instance, you're a really good example of like a multifaceted, uh, like you produce content, you make art, you bring art to other people. You have this view of tools, right? Or
Right.
this rich toolbox. I think that corresponds well to the demand for entrepreneurialism that this turn to total digitalization through social media, through the kind of like streaming platforms, the app-based streaming platforms, by extension, platform capitalism. Not everybody is wants to be or is able to be brand aware, and not everybody suits a brand. So while there
Right.
was already this move from music was never always central unless you're literally talking about these bars, and then there's something more about the community and the location and that sort of
Right.
demand we all have to make music. So there's always been brand in the mix for music in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But the shift toward entrepreneurialism, which the platform based ecology and economy demands, means that more people are having to think of themselves as businesses instead of people who turn sounds into songs. And that's the
Right. But
thing
do you
that
think that's a bad thing?
I do, because this whole rise and
Mm.
grind attitude, uh, like plays very well into the cult of the individual, where we get
Right.
so the sort of ecology that Mark was talking about was later described as independent music. But what it
Yeah.
really describes is interdependent music. It's people. It's so he talks about radio radio DJs and uh, bringing music to the masses. When I started making music, there was the MP3 blog, and it was just young
Yeah.
people who liked music and wrote about music. And
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to do that in the current milieu, where there is so much end-to-end corporate control in platforms like Spotify, even in platforms like Instagram.
Yeah, because
It's
you have to appease the algorithm before you appease the the viewers. Like you have to make content that the algorithm will pick up, and then hopefully as a byproduct of that, the people who see it will also like it.
Exactly. And I think sometimes in a performance context, there's an escape or there's a way to get hype by I'm performing now, I'm doing a persona, but in especially the social media context, you're interpolated to perform authenticity. And
Right.
that's a complicated thing.
Yeah, I saw that actually just before we started our chat. I was on Twitter and DJ Booth. I don't know if you follow them. They're a really good magazine about like hip
Okay.
hop culture and just like cool music stuff, really smart. And the editor tweeted something that was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with artists showcasing their successes, but your audience won't relate to you if you're not authentic. And nowadays, like especially nowadays more than ever, something that people value is authenticity. And I always kind of wonder about this, like, okay, we got sick of celebrities, which is why we saw the rise of the influencer, because we saw that it could be a regular person being successful, but now the influencer bubble is going to pop really soon because everybody's getting sick of them too. They're no longer relatable to us. Like, how is a 16-year-old making, $9 million a month, something that the average person can connect with at all? So I always wonder, like, what's going to come next? Like, is it actually going to be regular people, or are we just going to come full circle and start worshiping celebrities, like large scale celebrities again?
Yeah, Natasha Stagg talks about this in her book Sleeveless. She worked as an influencer marketer, and she talked, and I don't think, like, she doesn't trace it as influencers as a response to celebrity culture. She rather she sees like the celebrity as like the big cohesive block, and then the influencer is like the fragmented. So the same way that there are micro scenes in music, influencers respond to micro markets. And
Right.
so,
I mean, that makes sense, like lifestyle bloggers, etc.
yeah,
Mommy blogs.
exactly. Well, we knew we were going to have to race through this conversation. What do you think about the
No.
future?
What do I think about the future? I think the future is going to have us see a combination of virtual and real life stuff. I think now people are realizing they don't have to be so tied down to location or geography, and that, we might see, 5 years down the line, festivals that have DJs playing on screens at some of the stages. Like, instead of paying for their airfare and flying them in, why a festival could save so much money? Just rent a huge TV.
How do you like?
I think
So
that's something that could be a crossover for sure.
yeah, and I think people are going to become more comfortable with it. People are. It is kind of in the same way that post-COVID working from home will probably be a lot more accepted.
I mean, it should have in the first place. Not everybody can go into the office, and I think companies now are seeing that people are not as like deathly unproductive as they thought that people would be working from home without a manager breathing down their back.
Well, I mean, that's why people work in the office. It's a benefit to the managerial class.
Yeah, but you don't need them. It's like in that David Graeber book all about bullshit jobs. Like, so many of these positions are like not. Also, rest in peace, David Graeber recently passed away. Very sad.
Way.
Yeah, on September 2nd. I was very upset. I'm a big fan of his books. I know it's a huge loss for like the world, actually, especially now. But if anybody's listening to this, that's a great book to read, all about how like so many of these jobs are fake. And I know you mentioned platform capitalism. I'm just trying to look at my bookshelf and get the author.
Snare check.
Yeah, Nick. So that's also
Ontario born.
Really? I didn't know that, but it's on the Polity publisher, which is a great publisher. So
you straddle this very interesting thing, like this very interesting position. You, as a record label, like somebody running a record label, you are nourishing cultural, local culture. Like you platform a number of, like I quite like Dame Cook, like Erin.
Oh yeah, she's so good.
So you're doing that work of supporting the local, but then you're also kind of taking advantage of the international markets. And even when you talk about the future, you're talking about the kind of globalization of the music market. Do you have anything that, like, how do you think about that kind of, it's not tension, it's just these two things you do?
I mean, I don't know. I've never really felt any tension between the things that I do because I feel like they're all like are part of some like large sphere. Like I kind of like view myself as like a planet and everything around me that is orbited around me, or like the things that I'm doing, they're so related to each other. That's why they never like go against each other. Everything flows like very naturally in my work, and I understand that it can seem like very multifaceted, which is why I end up having to make a website to put everything in one thing. But for the most part, I find all of my work correlates because it's all like general music.
Right.
I don't know. Like, what do you think about the future? What do you think about the internet? I think like it's weird because you don't like the internet, or like you may have a negative view about social media, not just you, but like anyone. But now, especially now, it's all there is pretty much. So like, how do
Yeah.
you mentally kind of overcome that? You're like, I don't want to go online. I don't want to post my whole life, but then no one's gonna know my stuff, especially now because I'm not touring.
I don't know. I have that same thing. Like, I'll be out on a walk trying to engage with myself, and then I will see a thing that I like, and I will take a picture of it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to put this on social media. Like,
Like
this
my
is
special secret thing.
this is my special feelies. But then I'm like, well, why the fuck did I take this picture? Like, what is it for? So I have a very confounded relationship to social media. Like, I I have I have imbibed it deeply, but I don't know. It doesn't. It's because of its motive. The hopeful thing that I'm hearing about is something like an Ethereum or Bitcoin model for user programmed and user incentivized platforms. So things
Right.
like a social media or things like a Spotify that would be um, owned by the people who are programming it and incentivized in the same way that like an Ethereum is. So people contribute because they get a say and a bit of
Something back, yeah.
yeah. I think we've.
I
I
mean, I
think
don't
we've.
know. That varies.
You go.
I don't remember now. I don't know. I think it varies. Like, I think it'd be hard to get people to switch over social media and like actually making people do stuff. Like, Twitter is free. You can go on Twitter and see like the most chaos ever in like 20 minutes, get the entertainment of your day filled up, and it's free. And I understand it's because like we are the product, but I don't know. I think the only problem really is that like you were saying earlier, this like this authenticity that you have to perform now online because
Yeah.
that's the only thing that people are going to relate to. But is it genuine if it's performance? No.
I think authenticity is just a fraught term, and and because we because things like Twitter and social media have reduced the complexity of the sorts of conversations we can have, the sorts of arguments we can have, the sorts of positions we can occupy. Then I
Yeah.
think
And what
that,
people are.
pardon me.
And like what people are, because it's just like, literally making someone a two-dimensional thing. Like
Yeah,
just pixels instead of being like, oh, this is a person who has a like multifaceted like personality. Most people will find their niche and just be like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I'm only gonna
Uh,
post about like raves, for example.
and I think that's fine. You mentioned in our early exchange, uh, you mentioned Andy Warhol wishing that he could, watch all the parties from his bedroom. He also said, like, I don't have any judgments about people who invest too much time in things that I deem superficial because it's not like people got to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just that if the social media context is necessarily reductive, and if that has, which I think we probably agree it does, broader negative sociological and political ramifications, then it's not even a question of, oh well, I want to post the picture of my walk. It's a question of, okay, well, this won't do. But it's very lefty of me to say that sucks, but not have a conclusion about what to do.
I mean, I don't know. I guess this is kind of like gonna be one of our last few points because I don't know, we don't have a lot of time. But I remember
Oh.
back in the day when like Twitter and Insta first started, my friend had said something along the lines of like, "Oh, Twitter is for when you have something to say but nobody to text." and Instagram is for when you have a picture but you don't have anyone to show it to. So
Right.
by default, you show it to everyone instead.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. It's been really nice talking to you. We'll have to
Yeah,
pick
it's
this up.
been fun. We will
I
pick
want to.
this up. I'm sad we didn't have a huge amount of time, but I'm looking forward to, like, Ben and I, before we did this chat, we had this big email thread going, which I might add to. And now we were thinking about turning into like a blog post or a zine, if that's okay with Ken and MJ. I don't know if this is their own content now.
Their IP.
Disney owns everything that you think of under their employment,
Yeah.
etc. Or is
Um,
that Pixar? I don't know.
well, it's all the same, isn't it? It's the monolith. Yeah. So thanks to Ken and MJ, and thanks Sofie
Yeah,
for
thank you so
the
much.
talk. And yeah, I guess we will. I guess what, do we turn it over to MJ now?
Oh, thank you, MJ, for having us. And yeah, thank you. I'm going to go mute now. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Ken and MJ.